Hello and welcome to another action-packed, exciting hour of the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Re-Watch-Along Project. This is podcasting the way it used to be and the way you like it. This show is a production of the Something Else Podcasting Network, and it is episode number 076 of Smoky Mountain Wrestling from July 10th, 1993, taped June 28th, 1993, at the Council High School in Council, Virginia. My name is Arya, and joining me, as always, is the Johnny TV to my Darby Allin. It's Trey. Trey, how you doing today?
Are you saying I'm old and past my prime and I suck now unless you carry me?
I'm saying that you do a lot of moves on this show. You brought in all the moves and all the high spots onto this show,
Am I the
and I'm
moves
more
guy?
and I'm more of the person who gets hit by a bus.
All right, that's fair.
I mean, do you want to be the one that gets by a bus? I don't mind. We'll change that.
No, I don't want to die climbing Mount Everest either.
Sounds well. To be fair, he hasn't died climbing Mount Everest yet.
Yet. The bus might have saved him.
I I read that like he may not have been allowed to do it anyway because or climbing Mount Everest because I guess you have to do like preliminary climbs before they'll let you climb Mount Everest. They don't just let every schmuck who walks up to it climb it. So there may have been an issue
Well,
there, which I mean I'd imagine he looked into it and it's not just whatever.
the rules are different for TV stars than they are for people like us.
Yes. Famous people are just like us, except they're held to a different standard than the rest of us.
Yeah, well, it's important to remember everybody eats, everybody sleeps, and everybody shits.
Under Poe Lance Archer, everybody dies. See,
Indeed. Yeah,
I got confused by that theme song because it was right after he debuted in AEW that I began dyeing my hair, and I just thought that's what he was talking about. Everybody dyes their hair, and so I haven't had my real natural hair color pretty much ever since.
I think he just flies himself to whatever city Collision is in to beat up geeks backstage. Happening again tonight.
I was gonna say, when the fuck was the last time he's had a match?
Uh, he probably on Ring of Honor in the last couple of weeks.
Oh Lord.
He, he
Oh
teams with the
Lord.
Righteous sometimes.
So, what do you think about AEW's new TV deal? What a failure. They only got $555 million over 3 years.
At this rate, that company's going to be out of business in another 100 years.
I know. Damn it. Why can't, I said this when I did CBJ's show last week. Um, they could have gotten a deal for 5 years with for $5 billion and $1. $1 more than WWE got for Netflix. And everyone would be sitting and you'd have the AEW haters sitting here going, oh well, why'd they only get $1 more than WWE? This is obviously a failure on their part. It's like, motherfucker, I'm not saying anybody won or anybody lost. I mean, outside of AEW obviously won here, but it's like like, what the fuck's the point of putting them down for that? It's like, fuck, AEW did 80,000 paid to a show, and it was like, oh, well, they only 75,000 actually went to the show. It's like, so what? 80,000 people bought the fucking ticket. That was the point.
I like how the people have already pivoted from saying AEW is never going to be profitable because the show's not good, are now saying, well, now the show's never going to be good because they're profitable.
Of course, that's how it works.
Fucking idiot. There's like a whole fucking cottage industry based on just hating the challenger brand in an industry that was monopolized in a very unhealthy way for 2 decades. I don't.
I,
Well, I do get
I,
it. It's because during that 2 decades of monopoly, like WWE fandom just became such a part of people's identity that people become hostile when you challenge their identity.
I legit don't even understand it because for 20 fucking years, all you heard was that there's no real competition for WWE. That, the second major company in the US is TNA, and they're just WWE light. Well, love them or hate them, the last thing you can say about AEW is that they're WWE light. They're anything but WWE light. And it's just hilarious that the when you tell people that, their complaint then is, well, they're not enough like WWE. It's like, that's a good thing. Why do
Yeah.
people want everything to be exactly the fucking same?
And
Like,
the thing is, the people who say that aren't going to fucking watch it anyway because they're just going to watch WWE. The people who are going to
yes,
watch AEW are the people who want something different.
yes. Do you remember that fucking tooth and nail match between Big Swole and Dr. Britt Baker?
That was oh, did they like use like a fucking Novocaine shot for the finish or something? Like somebody jabbed him in the
Yeah,
leg with a shot? Is that match?
yeah, yes. That was the match. So that match was supposed to be on the pre-show. However, a whole bunch of people who were never going to buy the show whined and complained on Twitter about why was it on the pre-show? Why wasn't it on the main show? So Tony, of course, moves it to the main show, and those same people who whined and complained about it being on the pre-show are like, "Well, I was never going to buy the show anyway." It's like, I think that's around the time Tony's like, "Okay, I need to stop listening to fucking people on Twitter."
Here's the thing. There are two problems with being, someone who supports AEW and really wants them to succeed. The one is all of the trolls who are going to shit on AEW no matter what they do, and they're not going to watch it no matter what they do. The other one is the AEW fans who bitch about everything AEW does, even though they're going to watch it no matter what they do.
Now, there are some very valid criticisms of AEW,
Yes,
but,
absolutely.
I mean, there's very valid criticisms of everything. But the key again is valid. When your valid criticism is that WWE wouldn't do that, that's not a valid criticism. That's just pointing out what really it should be. Because if they were
I
doing if AEW Dynamite was 2 hours of wrestling booked like the average episode of Raw or SmackDown, you wouldn't fucking watch it then either, because then you'd be like, oh, well, it's just like WWE. Why can't they be their own thing? Some people just like to bitch.
I have watched dozens of different wrestling promotions over a lot of a lot of geographical places and a lot of eras. I have never seen a wrestling promotion that I had like absolutely no quibbles with. There's always, you know, nothing is perfect. I've never seen a wrestling product that I thought was perfect.
Yeah. Like New Japan, absolutely nothing like AEW. AAA, CMLL, nothing like AEW, nothing like WWE, nothing like New Japan. It's like that's what makes a lot of these, these Forbidden Door type shows so, amazing, because you have all these people with their different styles and the different ways they work, and now they're all working together, and it makes for a lot of interesting matches, even if they're not quote unquote dream matches in the strict sense of the word. You end up with, a lot of different styles, and sometimes it works great, sometimes it doesn't. But, at the end of the day, it leads for more fun, more interesting wrestling.
The reason that TNA never really became anything was that they never managed to establish an identity beyond being like that company was WWE Light, especially like the era that you're in on your podcast is kind of a bizarre little era where it's like the last grasp at a Southern territory that's slowly morphing into, or maybe not slowly, you'd be the one to know, morphing into Vince Russo nonsense. But by like uh 2008 on, fucking WWE Light was all it ever was.
I haven't recorded the show yet that would have aired yesterday, but yesterday's show and next Wednesday's show, I just know those are going to be two fucking shows for the record books because those are two fucking incredibly awful shows back to back. Like,
Man,
I think this is around the time when Brian Alvarez stopped reviewing the TNA weekly shows a couple years ago. And believe me, I completely fucking understand that because I was ready to turn these fucking shows off and just pretend I never did that podcast ever.
you remember OneWrestling.com way back in the day? It may still exist. I don't know, but it's not relevant anymore.
What about it?
I was thinking about it. I used to go there and refresh every Wednesday to read those TNA results back in the day.
I um when I was in college, so fall 2003 and 2004, we didn't have pay-per-view channels, so I would get the TNA email blasts and they would send the results the next day. And I remember being really excited at the time. And, I'm kind of interested to see when I get a year from now, when I get to the era where I followed TNA on the internet anyway, if I'm going to love the show following it then as much as I did in 2003. Probably not, since I didn't actually watch it. But, things like the rise of Chris Harris as a main eventer and all that shit. Like I'm looking forward to that, but I'm also worried that it's gonna suck.
You think TNA was just never like the optimism was never there after Jeff Jarrett didn't put Raven over in that match where he should have.
Yeah. It's like
Which
Jeff
that's
Jarrett,
like 6 months away for you.
it's like fucking at the same time, people may not remember this, but at the same time, we had the Triple H reign of terror and the Jeff Jarrett reign of terror
I have
simultaneously.
no knowledge of 2003 AAA. Oh, Triple
Trip
H.
I was gonna say I have no
I thought
knowledge of
you,
2003 AAA either, but
I thought you said
um
Triple A. I do
2003
remember.
was when Hunter buried Booker at WrestleMania and had multiple pay-per-view matches with Scott Steiner, Kevin Nash, and Goldberg. And this is not 2016 Goldberg where they realized, hey, you know what's cool? Watching Goldberg squash somebody in 2 minutes. This was 2003 Goldberg where WWE had to make a point and that Goldberg has to wrestle 20 minutes, because that's WWE main event style and they sucked major dick.
Yeah, I'm in a hotel room right now, and I don't want to get too loud. So I think it's best if I don't start going off on how I feel about 2003 Triple H right now.
Oh, okay. So we'll put a pin in that one for a couple weeks. Um, but hey, since we're talking about Smoky Mountain Wrestling, let's talk about Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Um,
Yeah, let's.
In case you've never listened to the show, first of all, what the hell is wrong with you? Secondly, what we do here, it is really quite simple. We watch every single episode of Smoky Mountain, beginning with episode 1 on February 1st, 1992, and we go all the way to episode number 200 on November 26th, 1995. We talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, the so-so, the all right, the amazing, the tremendous, the out of this world, the unbelievable, the unforgettable, the unremarkable, the one of a kind, the stuff you'll remember forever, the stuff you've already forgotten, and everything in between. We watch some matches, listen to some promos, and talk about some angles, and just have some fun talking about old school wrestling for about an hour. And then at the end of the show, I tell you what else is happening in the world of wrestling because I can tell you July 10th, 1993 until I'm blue in the face, but this gives you some context to where you may say, "Oh, I remember that. Is that what's going on?" And I say, "Yes. Yes, it is."
I've also been kind of placing it into a wider context by, watching everything I have from that period. And amazingly, I am actually like caught up, and I'm actually a little bit ahead of where we are right now. And it's fun. There's a lot like ECW is still finding itself. WCW, I don't know, it kind of has its moments. It's very WCW is not in a great place in 1993, but there's moments. And
Yeah.
I've recently added All Japan TV into the rotation, and that shit's awesome.
Gonna say at the end of this show, you may want to tune out just because I'm gonna have some heavy duty WCW spoilers for you
Oh,
as part
because
of
this is when they did the first MGM tapings, isn't it?
yes, it is. Um,
Yeah.
but let's dive into the show here. Let's go to the intro with Bob Caudle and Dutch Mantel.
Welcome to another exciting action-packed hour of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, professional wrestling the way it used to be and the way you like it. Hi, wrestling fans. I'm Bob Caudle, along with my partner here, Dr. Dutch Mantel. And we got a great hour in store for all you wrestling fans this week. We're going to see Brian Lee. He's going to be here. We're going to take a look at a tape of just how he figured in a match with Tim Horner and Smothers, which took place in Morristown, Tennessee. We're going to see the Rock and Roll Express. They're going to be in action right here during this hour. And we've got a change in a match with Kevin Sullivan at Summer Blast. We'll be telling you all about that. Dutch, what about Down and Dirty?
On Down and Dirty today, I'm going to have the Smoky Mountain heavyweight champion, Tracy Smothers, and he's going to be telling us about his trials and tribulations of being the champion here in Smoky Mountain.
All right, now what about let's draw for the Beat the Champ, huh?
Beat the champ to face Bobby Blaze today. My hand, my magical hand goes into the cap. I pull it out, and the name is Mike Sampson will face Bobby Blaze right here today in the Beat the Champ contest.
All right, fans, all of that and a lot more is going to be taking place right here during this hour. What you got, Dutch?
I'm going to show everybody how fearless I am. See what I got? Watch this. I am not afraid. Right here.
Oh, come on. Oh, come on, Dutch. Hey. All right, fans, let's hear this about the our popular wrestler contest. Dutch, you got me all confused when you did that. Our popular wrestling contest. Watch it right here.
Okay, so I admit I didn't do a huge amount of research on this. Basically, I read the Observer that week to see if Dave mentioned anything. What the hell is the thing with Dutch and the Pepsi?
I was gonna ask you. I couldn't even tell it was a Pepsi. I couldn't tell what it was.
I'm pretty sure it was a Diet Pepsi, but yeah. So Dutch says he's showing how fearless he is by drinking at it, and it's like, okay, this is probably a 1993 pop culture reference I'm not getting. And Dave didn't even mention it in the Observer when he ran down the Smoky Mountain TV show. So damn it.
Maybe perhaps Dutch is a fortune teller and he is professing his fandom of one CM Punk.
Ooh, there you go. You know, I I think that might be the obvious answer there, right there. And
I
CM
bet
Punk, huge star there. CM Punk too.
I bet he watched CM Punk with the same temporal device that he uses to listen to our podcast.
Of course. So today we're going to watch a tape on how Primetime Brian Lee took part in a match between Tim Horner and Tracy Smothers. Plus, we're going to hear about a change in the Summer Blast match between Kevin Sullivan and Kanemura. Tracy's on Down and Dirty with Dutch, and the Beat the Champ TV title match. I'm going to have a lot to say in a couple minutes. Bobby Blaze versus Mike Sampson.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna talk about Bobby Blaze and Mike Sampson in a minute. We need to talk about SMW's most popular wrestler contest. Uh,
Yes.
number one,
So
number one, who are we gonna vote for? And number two, how many times do you think Tim Horner voted for himself?
I was going to say, obviously, we were going to vote for Horner. Um, but yeah, the whole point of this contest, it was sponsored by Spectrum Rents, and you wrote in, voted for your favorite wrestler, and I'm sure you got a Smoky Mountain catalog out of the deal. And what would happen is whoever had the most number of votes, they would win, of course. And then everybody who voted for them, their name would be put into a box. Someone's name would be pulled out, and that person would win a TV.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought the most popular wrestler would get the new TV.
No, I'm pretty sure it's a fan being drawn out of a box.
You're probably right. I just misunderstood.
It's all good. Well, then we get the Beat the Champ TV title jockstrap holder Bobby Blaze versus Mike Sampson. Now, I do want to tie up a loose end from last week. They mentioned last week that Bobby Blaze was getting a 1 week delay on his TV title defense, and the way they worded it would say that that meant he just had to defend the title twice this week. Well, thankfully, Bobby Blaze did not have to wrestle twice this week. And I'm not saying that because I'm being nice to Bobby Blaze and being like, man, he shouldn't have to wrestle twice. No, I'm saying it because of this match.
He,
Um,
I felt bad for him just from the perspective that his first defense was against a job guy and he got his ass kicked for the whole match.
yes, that was the issue. Like the whole point of this is obviously, hey, we're trying to elevate Bobby Blaze. He's a good young worker, you know, and obviously he's working cheap. And we're going to try to elevate him a little bit here. But nothing about this whole thing has helped him. He got his ass kicked by Dirty White Boy. He didn't get in a single offensive move. He won by sheer luck and then got his ass kicked for minutes on end, and nobody came out to help him. Then he got his ass beat so bad he couldn't wrestle the second week. Then he comes out for his first defense against the job guy, and I wrote he went 50-50 with him, but that's being generous because it was more 10-90.
Yeah, this was 5 minutes, 24 seconds, and Bobby Blade got his ass kicked for 5 minutes. He got a pretty good reaction from the crowd for his introduction, and then they fucking did this to him.
This I think this was right before you started, but this was literally the Reno Riggins push from earlier this year, where they were going to give Reno Riggins a little bit of a push, and then he had his first match, his first enhancement match, where he's supposed to go out there and get himself over by beating up a jobber, but he spent so long as a jobber himself that he didn't know how to eat up somebody in 3 minutes. And he had a very competitive match with somebody he shouldn't have been in a competitive match with. And that's what happened here. Like that Dirty White Boy match, like that could have been saved. Like you could have, like if he would have come out here and kicked Mike Sampson's ass, like yeah, give Mike Sampson something so it's not just an out and out squash match. But if Bobby Blaze would have come out here and took 90% of the match and stood victorious and dominant and all this stuff at the end, it's like okay, it's like this helped him a lot, but it didn't. He got his ass kicked. And like I know Cornette obviously doesn't want to break kayfabe or whatever, but this is one of those times where they go to the back and you turn them right around and send them right back out to redo it. Because this was just crap right here.
I have a completely irrelevant observation to make. From a
Sure.
distance, Mike Sampson looks like Steve Austin during that brief period where he had switched to the plain black trunks but hadn't shaved his head yet.
I did not think that. I can only note his uh, skin-colored boots. They
Yeah,
were,
he might have looked better. He might have looked better in black boots.
yes. White Boy, by the way, joined the broadcast table and promised to bring Bobby Blaze a lot of pain and said he'd beat up Blaze anytime Blaze comes near a wrestling show. So does that mean if they see each other at the Piggly Wiggly that White Boy won't beat him up?
Well, that wouldn't be professional. You don't fight for free. You fight when you're getting paid.
So Bobby Blaze wins, and let's go to his post-match promo, where there is something much more interesting to note after this promo.
Hey fans, we're right here with Bobby Blaze. Bobby Dirty White Boy out here during that match doing a lot of talking. He was saying what he's going to do to you, and none of it was pretty.
Let me tell you something. This is great. The happiest moments of my life right now. I'm the TV champion. I'm getting checks. I tell you, I couldn't be happier. You know, just to beat White Boy, everyone said it was a fluke.
Now I'm out here defending my title. Maybe it was a fluke. White boy, one thing. You can beat me, you can beat me, and you can beat me. But you will never make me quit. You will never break the spirit of Blazing Bobby Blaze. Thanks, Bob.
All right, fans, you heard it right there from Bobby Blaze.
Okay, so I'm assuming you obviously watched this promo, right?
I did.
Okay, so I have a very important question to ask you.
All
Why the
right.
fuck was there a trophy behind them?
I didn't even notice.
Yeah,
I
there's a
was
big
just
there's a
I
big
was
ass
just
trophy behind Bobby Blaze. I'm like, oh, like this must become the Beat the Champ TV title. Like they have a fucking trophy. Like, no, it it's just sitting there and it never gets acknowledged. It's just a fucking trophy on the table.
did they get their hands on the world class 6-man tag team championship trophy?
It wasn't that big, but it was a noticeable trophy. I guess it wasn't that noticeable because you didn't notice it, but like to me, that was a pretty fucking noticeable trophy. And it's like they didn't even do anything to hide it. It was like, hey, like here's Bobby Blaze talking about how happy he was a white boy beat him up, and next to him is a fucking trophy.
Bobby
Also,
Blaze comes off like a very friendly fellow, but he has a very all shucks quality about him. But like not like Tracy Smothers is Andy Griffith, and Bobby Blaze is Barney Fife.
why was he smiling so much when talking about, prime about a dirty white boy beating him up?
He's a masochist.
That makes as much sense as anything, I guess. Um, but yeah, so this feud apparently must continue. I don't know if it must,
And
but apparently it's going to.
oh, it's gonna.
Yep. Well then, thankfully we got to fast forward about 6 to 7 minutes because for some reason, and something tells me that Bob Caudle may have been lying here, but for some reason they've been getting a lot of requests to re-air Tommy Noe showing up in the affluent part of Knoxville to visit Tammy Fitch last week. I, I'm more interested to know how many requests they got to see this segment re-air.
Would Bob Caudle lie to us?
I, you're right. I'm sorry, Bob Caudle. I didn't mean to insinuate that you would ever lie about something like that.
He's practically our grandfather.
Is he still alive?
I don't think so.
By the way, I just sent you the screenshot of the trophy. But
Okay, I'm gonna look up. I'm gonna look up if Bob Caudle's alive.
the only good thing about re-airing this promo is we got to once again look at 20-ish-year-old Tammy Fitch in a bikini.
Bob Caudle still with us. He is 94 years young.
God damn. Good for Bob
Good for
Caudle.
him. Indeed.
Yeah. Why isn't he on Raw these days? Why are we watching Joe Tessitore? Although from what I heard, he's not Joe Tessitore ain't too bad.
I've heard he's good. I haven't seen it.
And that required me to watch
That's,
Raw.
huh, that's an interesting trophy. Maybe it's Bob Caudle's trophy for being the best grandpa.
There you go. So they then air the footage of Primetime Brian Lee getting involved in the Morristown match between Tim Horner and Tracy Smothers that we've been plugging for the last few weeks. Both of them and the referee were knocked down, and Primetime Brian Lee comes jogging in, taking off his shirt like he's about to cash in Money in the Bank, but instead he put on some kind of glove, quote unquote, to knock out Horner, which let Tracy cover him. Mark Curtis crawled over the top of them, counts to two, but Tracy gets up because he realizes that apparently he is not good enough to knock out Tim Horner. Tracy goes outside and gets into a fist fight with Brian Lee, and eventually Brian Lee knocks him out, which I presume led to the match ending in some kind of no contest.
I was appalled at the disgusting, disrespectful, depraved behavior of Brian Lee. He is not a dentist. He is not allowed to wear a glove.
Was going to ask, where did this dentist thing come from? Because you asked me the other day, is Brian Lee a dentist? And I did not get it. But
Are you forgetting the inside jokes from our own show now?
yes, apparently.
It was uh, it was when Britt wrestled Mercedes Monet, I think, and we had the whole conversation about the glove, and then we determined that the reason she's allowed to use a glove, but Ted DiBiase and Mid South wasn't, was because you have to be a dentist to use a glove in wrestling.
Wow. You have a much better memory than I do. I mean, if it was
I,
Britt versus Monet, that would have just been a month ago.
I have an incredible memory for the most useless information.
I appreciate that. I really do.
Thank you.
Well, let's go to Down and Dirty with Dutch with his guest Tracy Smothers. And we're just going to say that this is not Tracy's strongest promo of all time, but we'll get to that in about 3 minutes.
Welcome to Down and Dirty with Dutch. I'm Dutch Mantel, and you're not. And like I said at the top of the show today, my special guest, the Smoky Mountain heavyweight champion, the Southern boy, Tracy Smothers. Let's give him a big hand right now. But Tracy, what I got on my mind right now, you're the reigning Smoky Mountain heavyweight champion. Now, ever since you've won this belt, and even back before then, you have had your trials and you've had your tribulations. Of course, you took this belt from the Dirty White Boy, and it's been one constant battle after the other. And then Ron Wright puts a $20,000 bounty on your head. You're fighting that. Then some run-ins with Tim Warner, but lately a run-in with Brian Lee. Now, what caused this, and what do you intend to do about it?
Well, I think all the people saw the video where this girl has just, swayed Brian's thinking, turned him against his friends, his family, and everybody. You've seen the videos out there with the dead-gum cars, the 300ZXs, the swimming pools, and the houses. You know, Brian Lee, prime time Brian Lee, I helped you get started in this sport, man. You turned your back on me. I'm the one that was always there, man. When Kevin Sullivan busted your head and half killed you, I'm the one went to the hospital with you. But I'm going to be the one now to try to put you in the dead-gum hospital. You no good, backstabbing punk. You bleach blonde. Let me tell you something. You have no respect for this sport or the people in it. You have a great talent, one of the best talents in the sport, but you got a bad attitude.
Well, we're being joined here at ringside by primetime Brian Lee and Tammy Fish. Now, gentlemen, I don't want any conflict here. This is my segment, but I'm sure you have something to say, primetime.
That's right, Dutch, I have something to say. Tracy, I'm going to make it simple. You have $20,000 on your head, Primetime's going to get that. You have a heavyweight belt, Primetime's going to get that. And as you can see, I already have the lady, and things are looking real good for Primetime.
Primetime? That should be changed from primetime to prima donna. Huh?
Listen, Tracy, you had your chance to sign with me, and you know what? I thank God you didn't, because if I had to bring a little country bumping, manure shoveling hillbilly like yourself around with me, I'd be embarrassed within 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, wait a minute. Brian, let me answer a question for me. Is this little tramp right here your manager, right? Huh?
You better believe it.
She pays you, right?
You better believe it.
She bought you that car. Is that right?
You know she did.
Bought you the house.
You know I'm sleeping there.
The swimming pool and the jacuzzi.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, little Miss Wellesley College, little Miss Tammy Witch, that's a big change for you. From what I understand, you're used to paying people for your services. Whoa.
All right. So, yeah, shockingly, this face-to-face confrontation ended up in a beating or a fight of some kind.
Wow.
Yep. And
I
we've gotten to the point here where Tracy is going to start coming up with nicknames for people, and they're not very creative, and he's just going to keep saying them over and over again. Like this one where he not only calls Brian Lee prima donna Brian Lee, he says it twice because the first time got no reaction. It's like he's Eric Bischoff asking Sid where his scissors are.
Oh, I just actually read the story in the '93 Observer Yearbook about that whole incident like yesterday.
Yeah. Sid and
So
Double A. It's
uh,
kind of
uh,
amazing, and I'm not saying he should have kept his job, but Sid got fired, and Arn Anderson, who started the fight and brought scissors into it, Arn got to keep his job.
yeah, we're not going to relitigate something that happened 31 years ago, I don't think.
Yes, on this podcast, we do not talk about stuff from 31 years ago.
Well, we do on the shows that we're watching.
So we're not going to be watching the hotel security camera footage of Arn and Sid.
If only. If only. So I don't want to spoil what might happen when Tracy Smothers defends the heavyweight title against Brian Lee, but I will note that Tracy has an All Japan tour next month.
Hmm. Well, I mean that could mean anything, there's no guarantee that means anything, but we'll see.
You
So
imagine,
Tracy
you
calls. Mhm.
imagine Tracy defending the SMW title against Masawa at the Budokan.
See, I don't think Masawa has won enough matches to earn a Smoky Mountain title match. You know.
He's uh he's the Triple Crown champion. He's top 10 in the world.
Yes, but has he beaten Dirty White Boy? Has he beaten, you know, Buddy Landell? Has he beaten Paul Lee? You know, there's
That'd be a
some
hell of a
serious
match.
contenders.
Masawa and Paul Lee. I got to fire up the Fire Pro and make that one happen.
Yeah, break out TEW 2020 and book that match.
They just came out with a new one. I haven't looked at it yet.
I haven't either. I
TNT.
figured I'd give it a while for people to actually make scenarios and not be
Yeah,
lazy fucks about them.
yeah, it takes a little while, but from what I was kind of reading the developers journal for a little while, and it seems like they make it just so detailed that it gets overwhelming.
Yes, that's the one thing too. And it's like it's a real fun game, but it's like it's a little too detailed at times. It's like sometimes you just need a fun, quick little GM game, and that's that's too much work.
If somebody does a 1993 scenario, we need to book SMW.
I thought we were gonna book all Japan so we could bring in Paul Lee to do a job for Masawa in the Budokan for the Triple Crown.
Now I want Masawa to come to Council, Virginia, or Jellicoe, Tennessee, and fight Paul Lee on his turf.
Well, maybe we'd have to do a home and home series where they each host a match. I'm just
There you
laughing at the
go.
idea of Masawa coming to Smoky Mountain to wrestle Paul Lee.
I just want to hear like what an East Tennessee crowd how they would react when Masawa just hauls off and elbows a motherfucker in the face.
Oh my God. And then Cornette would have to explain to him how to work Southern style. So he'd put him in with Horner.
Um, oh my God, Horner and Masawa. Oh, new dream match. New dream match.
Oh my God. And there are some people coming in a few months. In fact, there's one person coming in a few months. Oh my God. Let's hope we remember to revisit this topic come November because there is a new wrestler coming in who him versus Masawa would be simultaneously millions of dollars and negative millions of dollars, so it would make no money.
By the way, I was so bummed out when I looked it up and realized that Tony Anthony never worked Japan. It just seems like just such a such a lost such a loss to the business. And I'm mainly upset that I will never get to hear the Japanese ring announcer say "dirty white boy."
Hoodie, white boy. So Tracy calls her Tammy Witch. I imagine Tammy Witch is still spelled with a Y, um, and that implies that she's a prostitute. And Tammy does not like being called a prostitute, apparently. So she slaps Tracy, and the fight is on. Eventually, Tammy yanks Tracy off and sprays hairspray in his eyes, which leads to an extended Brian Lee beatdown. And eventually, Scott and Steve made the save.
I don't
Um,
remember if it was this week or next week or on one of the local promos. And Tracy said she was Tammy Witch with a capital B.
both. It was in a local promo this week and in a regular promo next week.
All right.
By the way, I want to note that when Tracy said that when Sullivan half killed Brian Lee, that he went to the hospital with Brian. Note that he didn't say he came to help Brian out when Kevin Sullivan tried to murder him.
Oh, maybe he was
Um,
busy.
there you go. Speaking of Sullivan, Cottle said that a week ago in Japan, Sullivan blinded Kanemura and said it was so bad that they cannot air the tape. And due to that, Sullivan is being suspended all over the world, and their match at Summer Blast is off.
Okay, so this will not surprise you. That match in Japan did not happen.
Gasp.
The wing guys, for whatever reason, canceled their SMW bookings. Now, I didn't look into this in detail in the Observer. I just saw like it was mentioned in the yearbook that they canceled their SMW bookings. And I don't know if this is related or not, but they are in talks to do stuff with ECW. They're like
Yeah.
when they do the bumpers for the August ECW Arena TV tapings, they say that they're in negotiations with the Japanese promotion Wing to bring in their talent. Um, I assume Doug Gilbert is the middleman between ECW and Wing. I don't know if that has anything to do with this. I do know that Paul Heyman has a bee in his bonnet about Jim Cornette for some reason or another. Because on the TV that aired the week before this, the ECW TV, Heyman was on commentary and just he says, people like Terry Funk and Jim Cornette keep meddling in our business. Now I understand Terry Funk because that's the storyline. The Dangerous Alliance and or Hot Stuff International are feuding with Terry Funk. Jim Cornette ain't even in this territory. What did Jim Cornette do that week to piss off Paul Heyman?
I'm shocked to hear that Paul Heyman and Jim Cornette had a beef with each other. I wish more had
Uh,
been said about that.
yeah, can't imagine such a thing. He also just randomly shit on Vern Gagne on one of the shows I just watched for the Oh My God cast that will have dropped day before yesterday.
Because why wouldn't you just shit on Vern Gagne, right?
Uh,
For all we know,
why
for all
wouldn't?
we know, Vern likes that.
Uh, I'm not gonna. I was gonna make a Vince McMahon joke, but that just seems like it's in poor taste.
Yes, and we keep things in taste on this show at all times.
Very, very tasteful.
Yes. So, yep. So the Wing relationship is over. Wally Yamaguchi is probably never going to show up on the show again. Hashtag sad face.
You
Um,
think you think he's met Mrs. Yamaguchi yet?
well, I think she was like 12 years old at this point, so probably not.
Oh, I would hope not.
So then 29 minutes into the show, it's time for the second match of the show. Tag team champions Rock and Roll Express versus Robbie Eagle and Jimmy Jannetty. Or maybe not, because the Bruise Brothers stomp to the ring, get rid of Eagle and Jannetty, and Corny challenges Rock and Roll Express to put the belts up right now, or their other option is to admit that they are yellow cowards. They're yellow,
Ooh,
stinking cowards.
ooh.
And sadly, Ricky and
Fighting
Robert have
words.
never heard that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me because they accepted the challenge without even giving it a second thought.
Those are what's called fighting words, Arya.
Yes, but you're an adult. You don't have to jump every time somebody says something mean about you.
You remember it was on TNA in like, I don't know, 2010, 2011, and I can't remember who, somebody was cutting a promo about Rob Van Dam, and Van Dam comes out and he goes, "Yeah, if somebody says your name, they play your music, and you have to come out."
I don't remember that, but that sounds like something that would definitely have happened.
That's
Oh my God.
hilarious.
So before we get into this very riveting Rock and Roll Express Bruise Brothers match, I got to tell you about a angle that I booked today in 2004 WWE. So, the GM is Teddy Long, and every week he's booking somebody one-on-one with The Undertaker. So for some
Uh-huh.
weird reason, I don't even know why. I wasn't watching 2004 WWE. I wasn't reading anything about 2004 WWE. I was just doing whatever, and suddenly this angle popped into my head. So JBL's in the ring talking shit. Teddy Long comes out and books him one on one with The Undertaker. JBL freaks out and complains that every week he has to go one on one with The Undertaker. He doesn't want to go one on one with The Undertaker. So Teddy Long is like, so what about if we do a handicap match instead? And JBL's like, so me and The Undertaker in a handicap match. And he's like, yes. And so he's like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do a handicap match. And he's like, well, who's my partner? And he's like, well, what do you mean? And JBL's like, it's a handicap match. Who's my partner to wrestle The Undertaker? It's like, no, playa. It's a handicap match, but it's The Undertaker and his partner, Booker T versus you. And Bradshaw flips out and flips his wig, and we go from there. Then the next week, they come back, and Bradshaw's like, okay, I want a handicap match with The Undertaker and Booker T, and my partners are the Basham brothers. So, and Teddy Long comes out and he agrees it's going to be a handicap match with the JBL and the Basham brothers. And on the other side are The Undertaker, Booker T, and their partners, Los Guerreros. And somehow this all just entertained the hell out of me this afternoon when instead of watching Smoky Mountain Wrestling, I was dreaming of 2004 SmackDown angles.
See, this is what we got to get on the TEW9 or whatever it's called.
Yes. Except all those angles happen in your head because you just check out a book like a generic angle with Teddy Long and JBL.
Yeah, I mean you can write it. There's never had the patience for all that.
True. Very, very true. But anyway, back to what we were actually talking about, because, when has that ever stopped us? So now we're 31 minutes into the show, and it's time for the second match of the show. Tag Team Champions Rock and Roll Express versus the Bruise Brothers with Jim Cornette. So Ricky and Robert took turns covering Ron and/or Don, but Don and/or Ron kept kicking out. And so I had to question Mark Curtis because he kept counting even though there were no tags between Ricky and Robert. Um, and so I, I I gotta tell you something. I don't think the Harris twins are really twins. I think they're either one guy moving back and forth really quickly, or they're triplets or quadruplets.
Which one is the Nazi?
So Ron and/or Don beat up Ricky outside the ring. However, it wasn't important to actually show us what was happening. I don't know if they just didn't have a lot of floor cameras because I think they only had the one, but for some reason, whoever the hell was on it was not on the ball this week. Um, and instead of watching Ricky Morton get his ass kicked, we were watching the Harris twin that wasn't kicking his ass facing off with Robert Gibson in the ring, and nothing happened. And this is where I note that the tag team division really sucks these days because we're going to be watching the Harrises for at least 6 months. At least.
Oh, God. That's going to be fantastic.
Yes. So shockingly, they get the heat on Morton, and shockingly, he makes the hot tag to Robert, who runs wild. So the Rock and Roll hit the double dropkick on Ron and/or Dawn. But for some reason, Robert, instead of making the cover, turns around and is distracted by Cornette. Ricky's being led out of the ring by Mark Curtis, so the Harrises do twin magic. Now, we've all seen twin magic. The twins switch and they pick up the win, right? Nope, that's not what happens here. Because Robert was outsmarted the outsmartedness and kicked out of the expected small package. And instead, Jim Cornette hits Robert Gibson with a tennis racket for the real finish. And actually, that's not even the real finish because, wasn't it a stomp by one of the Harrises?
It was a stomp.
Yes. So after all that, one of the Harrises stomps Robert Gibson and then pins him. So yes, we have new champions. And I wrote, aren't we sure the company isn't dying now?
So I wrote Cornette whacked Robert with the racket, and then I want you to say that 3 times fast. Cornette whacked Robert with the racket.
Cornette whacked Robert with the racket. Cornette whacked Robert with the racket. Cornette whacked Robert with the racket.
I don't think I would have done that well.
Have you been drinking?
No.
I mean, other than Sprite limeade.
I'm from Arkansas. I don't speak very well.
Even though you don't speak English, you have a great amateur background. So let's go to Cornette, who has the new tag team champions with him, to cut a fun little promo.
Right here with us now, Jim Cornette, and of course the new Smoky Mountain Tag Team Champions, the Bruise Brothers. What a great miscarriage of justice that had to be.
No. What that was justice finally prevailing. That was a team that has some talent, has some ability. Beating a team that has nothing but a bunch of stinking redneck hillbilly fans cheering for them. There ain't nobody in this crowd that can whip nobody. There ain't nobody in Smoky Mountain Wrestling can whip nobody. Jim Cornette has all the beat. I got all the talent, and I got all the brains, brother. Now let me just say this to you, Rock and Roll Express. You are finished. You're done. You're demoralized. And next on the list is going to be the Armstrong family. That dysfunctional family that you see on Oprah Winfrey or Phil Donahue or Geraldo Rivera, where they're all married to each other's blood cousins, and they all have alcohol problems, and they all beat up on each other. A dysfunctional American family. That's what the Armstrongs are, and I don't care if Bullet Bob is back or not. Bullet Bob, you may be the general, but brother, I'm the boss around Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I put you out once and I can do it again. And the Bruise Brothers behind me, and the Heavenly Bodies, and Killer Kyle, there's no way that Armstrong's army can stop me. So right now, just like I promised, what we're going to do, we're going to go back and give these belts to the Heavenly Bodies, and I'm going to give the Bruise Brothers the biggest one-day payoff that they've ever made in their entire careers. They're going to be able to buy anything they want with the money that I've...
All right. So Cornette is still bragging about ending the Rock and Roll Express and is now going to end the dysfunctional, incestuous Armstrong family. Great. Incest jokes. But Corny says they're going to give Ron and Dawn a big one-day payoff to give the belts to the Heavenly Bodies. And that's when we get a fun little angle that I'll discuss in a second. So your thoughts on Corny's promo?
Typical great Cornette promo. We say it every week. It's it might as well be a stamp at this point.
Yeah. I mean, we may as well just, have like an audio drop that we just play. Great promo. Great promo. Great promo.
It's funny.
And
so the software that I use to take notes is it's called Rome Research, and I'm not going to go deeply into it, but it's a really cool program. But one of the things you can do is like I can just bring in a block that I had written previously, and I do that a lot for these reviews. And one of them is just typical Great Cornet promo.
Well, thankfully we have systems like that make our lives a little easier. Well, then at this point we have 8 minutes left in the show. And I'm like, okay, we've only had two matches, so there has to be a third match, right? Well, the Rock and Roll Express come out to continue fighting with the Bruise Brothers. The Heavenly Bodies come out to make it 4-on-2. Scott and Steve Armstrong run in to even it up. Killer Kyle run in to make it 5-on-4. And finally, Bullet Bob comes in with a baseball bat and beat up HB and KK. And KKK, I mean the Harris brother, left without being hit with a bat, proving they aren't half as dumb as I tell people they are.
This was fantastic. Fucking yeah. That Bullet Bob Armstrong guy pretty over here in the Smoky Mountain Wrestling area.
And not only is he pretty over, this Bullet Bob Armstrong fellow can also cut a promo. And unfortunately, this is going to be one of those times where Ricky Morton should have kept his mouth shut. But let's go to the baby faces who are now surrounding Bob Caudle to cut a promo.
Fans, we had a war going on in the ring until this man right here, he brought it all to a head with that baseball bat, Bullet Bob Armstrong. Let me tell you this, boys. Armstrong's army is on its way, and rock and roll is here to stay. You know, Bob, not far from here a while back, a man carried a stick like that by the name of Buford Pusser, and he declared law and order. He cleared up a whole county. Well, Armstrong's army is here to take care of Cornette's criminals, if you know what I mean. Cornette, all you did was start a war. We're here to finish it. What you did was started, stumbled, fretted, and fell right in the middle of a bunch of racehorses, and you know that jackasses can't run with racehorses. What you're going to do is one morning you're going to wake up with hoof prints from your nose to your toes, and you're going to know that the army has rolled over you at a full gallop. And we're going to do it again and again. It's an Armstrong family tradition. Do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. Well, you've done unto us, brother, and now we're going to do unto you again and again. Until your mama ain't got no more money to pay you to get some wrestlers to do your fighting for you. Because you ain't got no fight in you. You just like oblivion. Everybody knows that's about 100 pounds of buffalo dung in a 50-pound bag. And when I hit you with this baseball bat and you explode, you're going to fertilize half the Smoky Mountains and all of the Cherokee Nation. The general is back. Bullet and the boys are here to stay. Cornette's criminals, we're going to round you up. And I'm glad we're back for Summer Blast. Because every time you see us this summer, we are definitely going to blast you.
That's right, Bob. We are going to treat them just like the Eskimos did the polar bears.
How in the world is that?
We're going to kick them in the ice hole.
Ooh. We'll be right back.
All right. So normally I would say, hey, Ricky Morton's the only other person who can talk, so it's a good thing he talked. This was not one of those times where he should have talked.
Sorry, I laughed at kick him in the ice hole.
There's nothing wrong with laughing at it, but like it was such a, random, ridiculous, unnecessary joke to make at the end there. And I mean, I get he's with Scott and Steve Armstrong, who can't cut a promo to save their fucking lives, and we'll see an example of that next week. But, this is one of those times where it's like, okay, just walk away, Ricky. But Bob cut a fucking great promo here. And, I mean, there's nothing else to say. It's like, I want to watch Jim Cornette get his fucking ass kicked. And preferably, I hope Bullet Bob uses the baseball bat when he does it.
Did you know that before he was a lawman, Buford Pusser was a pro wrestler?
I did. Even though my first introduction to Buford Pusser was that Rock movie, 20 some odd years ago.
I was going to ask if you knew about that one. Yeah. I never actually saw the original Walking Tall, but I did see the Rock one.
With Sean William Scott, too. Whatever happened to Sean William Scott? There was like
Was
5 minutes where he was a
that
thing.
was the run. That was the rundown. He wasn't in Walking Tall, was he? He was in the rundown.
No, I thought he was in Walking Tall. Well, let's do some digging here. This might break Wikipedia. I'm looking up Sean William Scott's filmography. Um, no, you're right. He was not in it. He was in Southland Tales as well. He was in The Rundown. So he was in a couple The Rock
Yeah.
movies, but not that one.
Our generation would probably best remember him as Stifler from the American Pie movies. Uh, he was also in Dude, Where's My Car with Ashton Kutcher, and yeah, he was a big deal in dumbass comedy movies, and I say that with love because I love dumbass comedy movies in the early
And
2000s.
and apparently he's still acting. He's in a movie, he's in an Amazon Prime movie released this year called Jackpot. He was in The Wrath of
Oh,
Becky last year, whatever the hell that is.
Jackpot! Jackpot is the
And
movie starring John Cena and Aquafina. I actually kind of want to watch that.
okay. And he also played Father Joe in 27 episodes of something called Welcome to Flash.
Nah. Oh, he was also in a movie called Road Trip in like 98, 99 that was also fantastic at the time.
Yes. Um, by the way, the second, oh God, I Johnny Knoxville is the second listed lead in the rundown, or I'm sorry, in Walking Tall.
Weren't Johnny Knoxville and Sean William Scott and Bowen Luke Duke in the Dukes of Hazzard movie in like 2005?
Oh God, fucking what a fucking world we live in.
I don't. Why are we having a conversation about Sean William Scott's filmography during our Smoky Mountain Wrestling review?
Well, we always stay on topic here. That's because we were talking about Walking Tall with Buford Pusser, and that brought up uh that I thought Sean William Scott was in that, but he wasn't.
Well, that makes sense when you put it like that.
All right, so let's end the show by talking to the WWA World Heavyweight Champion Chris Candido, who last week wrestled Tim Horner and cheated, but he beat Tim Horner, or did he?
All right, fans, right with me. I guess got to be one of the saddest individuals I've seen, Chris Candido. What in the world, Chris? What?
Bob, I can't believe it. I came here to Smoky Mountain Wrestling to try and give it some credibility and defend my title. You know I'm the real world champion, and I can't. And then last week, I beat Tim Horner right in the middle of the ring, fair and square on TV. Then the whole was show. Don't call me a baby. And now they said I cheated, and they reversed the decision. And now they said Tim Horner won, and I didn't. I don't cheat. I'm from New Jersey, for Christ's sake. I'm the world champion. They did. Oh,
Hey,
what?
here's Tim Horner, fans.
Don't stand out here and cry about it.
I'm not crying. You got Howard.
He's got an
Alan,
Allen.
Let me tell you something. If you want to straighten it out, we'll get it straight next. Can we have a match next week?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
What about?
Yeah.
How about would you beat him next week?
Cry about it, cry, baby.
I already beat. Okay.
On for sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine.
Cry, baby.
No.
All right, fans. Next week, that match is going to be right here. We'll see you then. That match and much more next week on Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Tim Horner is such a dick.
And apparently, Bob Caudle is the commissioner now, or on the board of directors. He has matchmaking power.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, he said it, but I mean, Candido still had to accept the challenge. But to be
Horner
honest,
asked if they could have a match next week, and Bob Caudle said yes. That's what I'm doing.
well, but if I was Candido, I would have taken back the challenge after Horner calls him a crybaby. Um, and they mentioned that the last week's decision got reversed, so Horner wins by disqualification. And he says he doesn't cheat. He's from New Jersey. Can I just say I'm loving this gimmick? It's like I don't know. I don't remember how long this thing lasts, but this whole, I'm from New Jersey thing. It's the worst hoity-toity thing you've ever heard in your life. Because like, who the hell brags about being from New Jersey?
I'm not gonna change the result of that match in my official unofficial record book.
No,
I'm
it's
not
like,
not gonna
you know, no.
not giving Tim Warner the win.
When the Smoky Mountain history books are written by us in 2 years, Chris Candido will officially won that match.
Absolutely. So yeah, this I guess I can say this is not going to really spoil anything. This is building to a series of matches over the summer blast where the loser has a drink from a baby bottle. So that Candido was fantastic here.
I can't believe you would spoil things like that for everybody.
Yeah, we've never spoiled anything on this show before.
Nope, 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 nope.
Not
But
even when
see, that was
Stan
this
Lane
week's.
lost the Stan Lane Leeds Town match.
That does it for this week's Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I don't know about you, but I thought overall this was a weak show, even with that great Bullet Bob promo.
It was a weak show, but then like even when these shows are weak, you usually get a couple of good promos.
Definitely. And I should note that that fucking trophy disappeared and never came back.
Huh.
So
Yeah,
I kept
it
looking
doesn't
for
appear.
it every time they went to the announce table. I'm looking for the fucking trophy. I'm like, nope, it wasn't there. Only during that Bobby Blaze promo for some fucking reason.
That it doesn't appear next week or ever again, I guess.
I'll, I did not notice it next week. I guess we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
I guess George Weingroff's jockstrap will have to continue representing the Beat the Champ TV title.
Yes, no giant trophy for the Beat the Champ champion. Well, so before we finish things up, we got to tell you what else is happening in the world of wrestling because, as I mentioned, I can tell you the date, July 10th, 1993, until I'm blue in the face. But this gives you this gives you something to reference here. And so the big thing, and this is one of those times where I tell Trey to cover his ears, because I'm going to spoil some WCW for the next 4 months. WCW held their Disney tapings for the first time ever this week for shows that are going to air from August 27th through November 20th. It exposes that Ric Flair is going to win the NWA title from Barry Windham and then lose it to Rick Rude. Arn Anderson and Paul Roma will win the tag team titles and lose them to the Nasty Boys. And Ricky Steamboat will win the TV title and lose it to Steven Regal. Now, this is actually step one in the dissension between WCW and the NWA, as the NWA
Mhm.
was not consulted on either NWA title change. And for a matter of fact, the shows that are taped in November, Rick Rude is just introduced as the World Heavyweight Champion with no mention of the NWA.
Mm-hmm. And at one point, like at Fall Brawl, like at one point, don't they just call it the Big Gold Belt?
I don't know if they actually say that. I know that they will start calling it the Gold Belt for a little while until they rename it the WCW International World Title.
Which sounds so weird until they explain that it's the World Heavyweight Championship recognized by the new governing body of WCW International.
Yes. I was in my mid to late 20s when I discovered that's how that belt got its name.
I was probably in my mid to late 20s as well.
What a coinky dink. Um,
Indeed.
so there is obvious concern about taping that far in advance in case of injuries or people leaving WCW in the meantime. And spoiler alert, both of those things will happen.
I mean, what's the worst going to happen? Are two guys that you've already taped months of shows for going to get in a scissor fight in England?
That would never happen. Plus,
Never.
the worst of it is still to come because they've got another Disney taping in a few months.
Yeah. this this becomes a fucking mess.
Well, Carlos Colon announced that he will be retiring on August 8th after a match with Abdullah the Butcher. Now, as we know, Carlos Colon definitely retires here and definitely does not come back 6 months later and definitely does not wrestle sporadically until 2014.
Is that it? I was gonna, for all I know, he's still wrestling.
Now the last I saw his last match was in 2014, so it looks like he finally really retired.
You remember
And
when he
then
was in the Royal Rumble and Gorilla Monsoon called him a promising youngster and he was like 44?
that was earlier this year.
Oh, was that this year?
Yeah,
Fun.
1993.
Fun.
Uh, and by the way, no, I know this is New Japan, not all Japan, but here's some Japan news for you here. Riki Choshu tore his Achilles tendon in a freak accident while running the ropes during pre-match warm-ups.
Yeah. It's no good.
N- Now, when Dave talked about it, he didn't say whether it happened like during entrances of the match or if it was like pre-show. But yeah, Riki Choshu is going to be out for at least 6 months.
By the way, the only reason that I'm not also watching New Japan TV is because I haven't been able to find like good copies of it, or I absolutely would be.
I just figure you've become 1993 obsessed. You got your WWF, your WCW, your All Japan, your ECW. You know,
Yeah,
I
well,
don't know if. Hmm?
the only versions of the New Japan TV that I've been able to find are like they're just kind of cut up and just like it's got just match, match, match. It doesn't have like the whole shows with the bumper and stuff, which to me is part of it. Like
Yep.
I mean, the
That,
the versions of the All Japan TV that I found are kind of a mess with like sometimes the like beginning of an episode will be on the end of the episode from the last tape. And so
hmm
actually I've actually gotten pretty adept at editing different videos together to make a coherent whole because I've had to like sometimes I've had to like get matches off of YouTube or uh, the old All Japan archive to piece it together. But I don't have a weird
um,
obsessive personality or anything.
that's why we love you.
Thank you.
Um, but that's gonna do it for this week's show. Before we go, do you have anything else you want to say to the people? Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, the Oh My God cast drops at this point every other Tuesday. So a new episode dropped this past Tuesday as you're listening to this. We're in roughly the same weeks. Now it's kind of wonky right now because they skipped the second week in July. So the show that aired this week is gonna it was the first episode, the first week and the third week of July, and we're the first 2 weeks. So it's more or less the same, and it'll work itself out eventually. But yeah, roughly the same time period. So if you want to know what's going on in the East that will become the land of extreme, check out the Oh My God cast at ohmygodcast.com or available wherever you steal your podcast from.
All your favorite streaming platforms. Well,
Yeah.
so that's gonna do it for this week. I want to thank everyone for listening. I hope you all enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Bye.